Hey coders, welcome to my channel Coding with NJ. This particular tutorial that you are currently watching is actually part 7 of the series where we are building an e-commerce series without any frameworks and libraries. Our front end is vanilla JavaScript and our back end is vanilla PHP. Both of these sites are implemented as an independent website or independent domain, and they communicate through fetch requests in a RESTful API-based style. So our backend, that is PHP, is offering its services through REST APIs, and our front end is consuming that REST API services to implement what you currently see in the browser. We are also developing this web application as a single page application. And since both front end and back end act as independent domains, so communication between two is tricky. So you will also see how to handle communication between two independent websites and how to send secure data between two. What are the issues that we are going to encounter and how are we going to handle them? I'm mostly talking about course issues and passing the cookies between different domains. This specific video that you are currently watching, in this one, we are going to learn to implement a shopping cart for our guest users. This shopping cart is going to be implemented through PHP sessions at our backend. In our future videos, we will be implementing a shopping cart for our registered users who have currently logged in, which we will implement through database tables. Okay, so that was the introduction. Now let me give you a demo of what we are going to implement today. So as you can see, currently I'm not logged in. That means I'm a guest user over here. And since you can't see anything above our icon, so if I try to click on this icon, I get this message that the cart is empty. So let's put something in our cart. Let's click on this and let's select the quantity from 1 to 2. Now add it to the cart. So currently you can see there is nothing above this cart icon. Let's click on this add to cart. Now you can see there is one above it. So even though there are two products, we can see one in the circle. This is because the unique product is 1, however its quantity is 2. So let me add one more to it. Add to cart. Still we see the number 1 over here because this number represents unique products, not their quantities. Now let's click something else. This is out of stock. Let's add this one. Now you can see the number 1 has been changed to number 2 because there are two unique products in our cart. Now let's click on this cart icon. Now we have been redirected to our kind of view cart button. I'm saying kind of because we have not actually been redirected. If you notice, we are still at our index.html. This is because the logic is implemented as a single page application. That means our page doesn't refresh. Only some of its contents have been replaced by new contents. Okay, now as you can see, we can see certain information regarding each product. So this is the item, this is the current selected quantity. Over here we can see its availability, and this is the collective price for 3 units of this product. And this is the delete button if we want to completely remove this item from our shopping cart. And over here we can see the total. Now let's change the quantity from 3 to 1. You can see the price changed as well, and our total has also changed. Now let's delete the item. Deleted, and since our cart got empty, so we got again kind of redirected back to our index.html page, to our dashboard. And let me be clear, we are not actually redirected, only the contents have been replaced by these new contents because we are implementing everything as our single page application, which doesn't require refreshing and reloading the page. So it's single page in which we can see different contents. Okay, so that was the demo. Now let's go and start working on coding. Okay, so we are going to start our code by creating 2 files, one for front end and one for back end. So for the front end, let's create cart.js file, and for the back end, cart.php. Okay. Now let's connect this cart.js file with our index.html file. Okay, so we have everything. We have created 2 files and we have associated our cart.js file with the index.html file. Now what shall we define over here? So let's go to our demo project. So this is not the demo project, this is the one that we are defining. So there are certain things that we want to happen. So the first thing that should happen is that as soon as this page is loaded into the browser, a request should go to the backend and it asks for the current status of the cart. And if currently there are any items in the cart, it should display a blue circle over here with the number in it, and that number represents the current number of items in the cart. So we have to start with that part. So we are going to attach another event listener with DOM content loaded event for this cart. So let's go to global.js file where we have defined all event listeners which are associated with the DOM content loaded event. So let's open global.js file. Let's go at the very top and attach one more event listener. Paste. Let's make it check cart status. Now let's define this check cart status function in cart.js. Let's change the name from check cart status to update cart. That's more appropriate. Now let's go to cart.js and define this function. So this function is going to make a fetch call to the backend and ask this for the current status of the shopping cart. So fetch call cart.php response update cart. So this is going to be a GET request, therefore we don't need to provide this parameter, and this doesn't send any data along with this request, so we don't need to provide the fourth parameter either. Just two parameters, the URL endpoint and the function which is going to handle the response which is going to come from this fetch request. So what we have usually done is that we have defined this function as a local function or inner function within this top level function. But since this function is going to be called from many different places in our cart.js file, therefore we are not going to create this as an inner function, because if we create this as an inner function, that means the other functions will not have access to this function, and we will have to redefine the logic which we are going to define for this function at multiple places. We don't want to do that, so we are going to define this as an independent function. Response update cart, it will receive data from the fetch request. So at the time being, we are simply console logging the cart, whatever the data we get from the backend. The rest of the logic, such as the contents of the cart, how to display them, and if this cart is not empty, it contains some data, then depending on the number of products in the cart, we want to make a blue circle appear on the cart icon with the number matching the number of items in the cart. But that logic we are going to define later. For the time being, we are only console logging whatever we receive from the backend. Next, we need to define the counterpart for this request, which will handle this request in cart.php. So first thing is, let's create another PHP file and let's copy this part. Close, paste. Okay. Now if the request is of type GET, in that case we want to return whatever is the current status of the cart. Now since we plan to have two different kinds of carts, one for guest user which is going to be implemented through session variables, and the other for logged user which is going to be implemented through database tables. So even though we are currently working on the guest user's cart, but in future we will be making the other cart as well. So we need to make some preparations such that this file is able to handle both kinds of requests. So the first thing that we are going to do over here is we are going to check if is set $_session logged user. So if this session variable is set, that means we have a logged user. So we will be handling the request differently. So in that case, we want to call a function which is going to handle the session which is created through database tables. So we are going to call get logged user cart, else get guest user cart. Okay, so we need to define both of these functions, and since we are going to have many more if blocks with different kind of HTTP requests: get, post, put, fetch, and delete. So what we are going to do is that we are going to create 2 more files. Let's define those files in include folder, because these are going to be internal files as well. No request is going to come directly for these files. So the request for the cart is going to come to cart.php file, and this PHP file is in turn going to utilize these 2 files. So logged user cart.php, and the other one is going to be guest user cart.php. Now include both of these files over here. So inside the current folder we have a folder named include, and there we have guest user cart.php file. We need one more for logged user. Now since this file cart.php file is going to delegate the request to one of these files, so what we are going to do is that we are going to cut this database connectivity file and paste it over here in both of these files, because these files are going to do the actual work. Copy and paste. Now we have to define this get logged user cart function in the logged user file. So let's rename this file. I have actually created logger user. I was supposed to create logged user file. Okay. So let's define this function in get logged user file. Currently it's empty. So now you can see red wiggly line, it has disappeared because we have definition for this function. Now we have to create this function in guest user cart file. So let's define this function. This is empty. So no wiggly bit over here, and then we can put exit over here. Okay, now since we are working on the cart for guest user, so let's close this file for the time being, and let's open this guest user cart, and over here we have to define all the logic. If the request has been redirected to this function, this means it has already been figured out that the customer is actually a guest user. Now since each time the web browser is refreshed or the website is loaded for the first time in the browser, in all of these cases a request will come over here. So that means this function is going to be executed multiple times. So when this function is executed for the first time, it means the user has just typed in the URL address and hit enter, and the website is being loaded for the very first time in the browser. So at that time obviously there won't be any cart variable created in the session for that user. So we have to check if this is the very first time. In that case we will create a new session variable named cart and then return that empty cart to the user. Otherwise, if such variable already exists in the session, then whatever is the current state of that session variable, we will simply return that session variable to the user. So we are going to check if is set $_ session. So within this session, do we have a variable named cart? If it exists, let's make it if it not exist. In that case, we are going to create this variable. So it's going to be an empty array. So this statement will only execute if this if statement returns true. If not, this part will never execute. Then we simply want to return this session variable named cart to the user. We are passing an array, the associative array, and the index name is cart, and the value is going to be the session variable. Okay, and that's it. So let's go and test it out if we are able to receive an empty cart in the browser. Okay, now let's refresh it and let's open the console. So let's check this object because we have received this object from cart.js file. So this object has one property named cart, which is an empty array, because currently we haven't put anything in the cart session variable. We have just defined this cart session variable to be an empty array, and that's what we received. Okay. Now for the time being, we are going to leave this function and not define the logic for this function, because currently we don't know what kind of data is going to be stored in that cart array, and if we don't know the actual data there, we can neither define the business logic nor we can define the presentation logic. So for the time being, we are going to leave this function as it is, and let's move on and think about what else do we need to define for this cart functionality. So the other thing that we want to do is that when we click on this or any item and we reach over here, then whenever we click on this add to cart button, then that item should get added to our actual cart. So we have to define this logic. So basically we have to attach an event listener with this add to cart button, and that event listener should have certain information related to the product, because we are going to send that information back to the backend, and that information is going to be stored with each product in the cart, so that each product could be uniquely identified, that which particular product has been added in the cart, what is its price, and how many quantities have been selected. So let's inspect this add to cart button and see where it has been defined. Let's click somewhere. Okay, so this is the button with the class name add to cart. Now since this button is inside an overlay which we defined in the global.js file, so that means we have defined this button in the global.js file. So let's open this global.js file and look for add to cart class. Let's close this. Okay. Now we have to attach an event listener with this button. So add to cart dot add event listener. Click, and let's define a callback function. Add product to cart. Now when we are defining this event listener and this callback function, we are going to bind some values, because this add to cart button need to have information about the product which has been clicked, so that it can pass that information to the backend. Now since this add to cart button is being defined inside the function get product details, and get product details has all the information related to this product through this keyword. The only information which is not present in this keyword is the current stock for this product, for which we are making a request to inventory.php. And because of this inventory.php request, now we have the stock in this stock variable as a response. So all the information is going to come from this keyword, and the stock is going to come from this stock constant. So all we need to do is that bind the information from this keyword and this stock to our new add to cart button. So what we are going to do is that we are going to pass an object to this add product to cart function. The first property for this object is id, and its value is going to come from this .id. The second one is image, and its value is going to come from this .image. Third is price. Its value is going to come from this .price. And the last property is stock. Now since the property name is stock and its value is going to come from stock constant as well, so this is the shorthand. Since when the property and its associated value both are same, then we can write a shorthand that is just stock. Okay, so now we have bounded all the information as an object, and since this function has to do with cart functionality, so what we are going to do is that we are going to define this function in the cart.js file. So copy, let's define this function. Just console log this. Now let's go and try to add an item to the cart by clicking the Add to Cart button. So let's click over here, click Add to Cart, F12. It has come from cart.js at line 5. So this is the information that has been printed from this keyword. So ID 43, image is this, price, and the stock. So the fact that we have got the stock as well, that means we are actually seeing this data from the add product to cart function. Okay, so before we make a request to backend along with this data, there is one piece of information that is missing, which is the quantity selected. So this is the quantity. So we have to access this quantity and send it along with the rest of the data to the backend. So let's go to the function that we are defining. Let's get a reference to this select statement. And just console log select.value. So 5. Now add to cart. So this is the object associated with this keyword, and this is the value of this select element. Change it to 8, and now we have got 8. So now we have got all the data that we need to send to our backend. So now let's go make a fetch call and send this information to our backend. Now since we have data that we want to be sent along in the body of our fetch request, so that means we need to figure out a way to attach all this information to the body of fetch request or HTTP. Now since we are sending some data, that means the request is going to be post request, and usually with the post request we usually have at the front end a form from which we extract the data and send it along to the backend. But over here we don't have any form, so what we are going to do is that we are going to create an object of type URL search params. Using this object, we can create key value pairs that are going to be part of the query string. So a query string is the part of URL which comes after question mark. So let's create that query string. So let's make it data, or we can make it payload as well, because that's what it's called in the HTTP terminology. So new URL search params. Now we have created an object of type new URL search params whose name is payload. Now we have to attach all this information one by one. So payload.append. This takes two parameters. The first one is the key, the second one is its value. So the key is going to be ID and the value is going to be this.id. Again, payload.append the second key value pair, image, and the value is this.image. Payload.append price. Its value is going to come from this.price. Then payload.append stock, and the stock is going to come from this.stock. Last is payload.append quantity, and the value is going to come from select.value. Now we are ready. Now we have all the data in the form of query string, and we are ready to make the fetch call to cart.php. The callback function is going to be this response update cart, the same one. Response update cart. The type of HTTP request is post, and the data is going to be attached, which is going to come from this object payload. Now its response is already defined through this function, so we don't need to do any more front-end logic. Let's move on to cart.php, which is going to accept this request. So again, copy. Let's make it returns cart to the user. Takes new Now request method is post. Again, if it's a logged user, so we are going to call a function which is going to add to logged user card, otherwise add to guest user card. So let's define this function in the logged user file. And this one in the guest user card. So we are not working on logged user. Again, let's close this and let's work on guest user card. So this is the function that we have to work on. Now over here, first of all, we have to extract the data which is present in our post global super variable and store it in the local variable. So id equals $_ post id. Copy, paste, image, paste, price, stock, quantity. Now it is possible that the user tries to add an item multiple times in the cart. So in that case, when add to cart button has been clicked, we have to make sure that the ID of that product does not already exist in our cart. If it already exists, simply increase the quantity and update the collective price. Otherwise, this is a brand new item which is not already in the cart. So let's create a new element in our cart array and append that element. So what we are going to do is that we are going to check if is not set $_ session with the index name card, and the second index matches the ID of the product. So if no such index element is present, that means it's a brand new product. So we have to add this to the cart for the very first time. So we are going to store it in the session variable at the index ID. So this is its unique identification. So now this is a two-dimensional array. The first dimension has the index name card. The second index keeps changing depending on the product IDs. And this element is also an array. So basically this is going to turn into a three-dimensional array. So the array whose first index is card, second index is ID, and the third index is image. We want to store the value, this one over here. Copy, paste. First index is card, second index is ID, but the third index changes stock, and the variable value is stock as well. Third one is quantity. Now the fourth one is going to be price. So even though we have this price variable, so that means we have received the price of the product from the user, but I don't think this is a good idea, because if the request is coming from user, so the user can select, let's suppose a quantity 10, and for the price it can manipulate it and change it to value, let's suppose $1 or 1 pence. So we should not reuse this price. So that means from our front end, we have to eliminate this price as well. We are going to calculate this price at the back end ourselves. So there is no possibility that the user can hack into the system and buy multiple products for, let's say, the price for 0.01 pence or something. Let's comment this out for the time being, and let's work on the rest of the information. So if we don't have already an item in the cart which matches this ID, that means this is the new product that we are adding. So this information, these three pieces of information gets attached to an index which matches the ID of the product. However, if that is not the case, that means this particular ID exists in the cart. In that case, we already have this product. So we are basically increasing the quantity. So whatever is the new quantity that we have received, we have to add it to the old quantity and update the current quantity. So in that case, the quantity is going to be copy paste. So old quantity plus new quantity. Now when the quantity is updated, the price needs to be updated as well. So we are going to create this price outside if and else block. Now for the price, what we are going to do is that, so ignore this price. We shouldn't get this price from the user. So let's create a new variable over here, price. And now we are going to call a function get product price, and we have to pass the ID of the product whose price we are interested in. Let's for the time being just place 1 to avoid this error that we are getting. So now we have to define this function. Okay, since we have to interact with database, so we need connection variable in our function. So global connection. This means we are using the global variable connection, not a local connection variable. And since we have received the ID from the user, so that means we have to use prepared statement. So statement equals select price from product where ID equals question mark semicolon. Step 2, create prepared statement. Pass this statement. Step 3, bind the parameters with this placeholder represented 3D question mark. So prep statement that bind. The type of this ID is integer, so I. Now the actual ID. This is bind param. Okay. Prepared statement. Execute. Now get the result if result equals prep statement. Get result. So if we do get the result, it's going to be stored in result variable. Hence, it won't be null. If that is the case, in that case, return result fetch a sock index price. Else, return -1. Okay. Now let's go back up. So over here we've got the price. Now next we have to multiply this price times quantity. But since this multiplication can result into a decimal value which is longer than 2 decimal points, so we want to round it to 2 decimal points. Okay. Now the next thing is we have to call another function called update total card, and this is going to attach another variable to this card, which is going to contain the total cost of all the products and their quantities. So let's define this function. Update total card. Let's define a local variable total and give it value 0.00. So this is going to be the default value for the total in case our cart is empty. And then since we are going to loop through all the items in the cart, so that means we have to use for each loop. For each session cart is item. Now since this is the first index, so that means each of this item is going to be the two-dimensional array whose first index is going to be the product ID and the second index is going to be different indexes such as the image, price, quantity, these things. So what we are going to do is that, so total is going to be total plus the current value of total plus current item, that is going to be the second index. So all the elements of that item are going to be accessed through this item, and then this is going to be the third index. So we are interested in the price, so take the price for each of those products and add them to this total. Now because we are adding floating point values, so this addition can result in a very long decimal point value. So again we have to restrict it to 2 decimal points. So the total is going to be, let's round it to 2 decimal places. So total and 2. So now we have got the total value of all the products accumulated in this total variable, and then session cart, and the second index is going to be total, and give it the value total. Okay, so that's it. So these are helper functions. This is another helper function. Okay. So I think we are done with the adding item to the cart. So once we have updated the total cart as well, now we can send the reply back to the user. So echo JSON encode. Again, the index is cart and the value is going to be session cart. So what is being returned is exactly the same as the one that we defined for our get request. So these two functions are also returning the same value. So this thing and this thing, they are the same. Therefore, at the front end, the same function can handle both the requests. So the same function was this response update card, which is currently just console logging whatever it receives. So let's try to add this item to the cart. And now this cart object contains two properties. The first property name is 10, which is actually the ID of the product that is in the cart, and the value of that property is another object which contains all the information related to that product. And the second one is a property named total, and whose value is 9.99. So this is the price of single unit of this particular product. Now click on this add to cart one more time and see what happens. We should still be able to see one item in the cart. However, our total should increase to around 198 something or 199, and the quantity should increase from 1 to 2. So let's click it one more time and let's see. So the total hasn't increased, however the quantity has increased. So there is something wrong with our total calculation. So let's go and let's figure out. Okay, so I have figured out the problem. So the first time when I added the product, that product was not in the cart. So this part was executed, the else part was skipped, and then we moved on to this part. So everything worked fine and we got the correct result. However, when I appended the second time the same product, this part was not executed. We moved to this else part, which again did its job. Then we moved on to this thing. This function again executed properly. However, over here we are making slight mistake. And the mistake is that we are storing this to this price index. And what is this? It's saying the current price times current quantity. So the current quantity is 1 because the second time again the quantity was 1. What we are supposed to do over here is that we have to get this quantity that we have recently updated. So we have appended the quantity to the already present quantity. That means the exact quantity is stored in this session variable. So copy this and replace this quantity with the one that we have received from the user, because what we have received from the user is represents just one quantity. However, this one quantity plus previous one quantity makes it 2, and now our logic should work fine. Now since we haven't made any changes to this particular item, so the total is going to remain same, which is incorrect. So what we are going to do is that we are going to application and remove our session, because the session contains incorrect data. Console. Now array is empty, cart is empty. So we have received an object with 2 elements or 2 properties. So let's click it one more time. Okay. Now the quantity is 2 and the price has also increased properly. So that means our adding item to the cart is working. Let's try to add another product. Let's add this one. Change its quantity to 3, add it. Now our cart object contains 2 properties. The name of the first property is 10 and its value is again another object. The name of second property is 44 and its value is an object. So remember, these 10 and 44 are their IDs, unique IDs of the products. And in our cart object, they become the property names. And then we have this total, which is 2218.8. So that means adding item to the cart logic is working perfectly. Now the next logic that we can work on is the user interface. So let's close this. So the user interface is that if there are items in our cart, we should be able to see this blue circle over here with the number representing the current number of unique products in the cart. And the second piece of user interface logic that we have to work on is that when we click on this cart, if the cart is not empty, we should see the detailed cart page from where we can update the quantity as well as delete the product as well. So let's start working on this circle that appears over here once our cart is not empty. So let's go to cart.js. And what we are going to do before we define the logic for this response update cart, we are going to create an object called local cart, which is going to consist of 3 properties. One of them is cart. Initially it's null. Second is length. Initially it's 0. And the third is total, and initially it's 0.0. The reason for creating a local cart variable is that we want to avoid trips to our backend as much as possible. So whenever a fetch response returns us the latest state of the cart, we will store it locally. And because of having that cart available globally in an object, we can access the cart through this local object. This will help us decrease the number of fetch calls to the backend as long as it's possible. So every time any of the functionality makes changes to the cart object at the backend, that functionality will get the new state of the cart as a result. And then we will store that new functionality in this local cart object, and the other functions which want to access this cart, they will get it locally through this local cart object rather than making a trip to the backend and getting it from there. So the only thing that we have to take into consideration all the time is that whenever our cart is updated at the backend, we make sure that this local cart object reflects those changes as well. Okay, now let's go and define this function. Okay, so by now we know that the data that we have been returned actually consists of an object, and that object has one property named cart in it. And inside that cart object, we are going to have all the product IDs as the properties of that cart object, and the rest of the information related to those products is going to be stored as a value for those properties. The last property in that cart object is going to be a property named total, which is going to contain the accumulation of all the prices of all the products in the cart. So let me show you in the browser. Okay, so this is the object that we have been returned, which has one property named cart, and this cart again is an object, and it has three properties. One is a property named 14, and the value of this property is object, which contains all the information about the product whose ID is 14. And the second property is 30, whose value is again another object which contains all the information about the product whose ID is 38. The last property is a property named total, which contains the total of all the prices of all the products in the cart. So basically we have to separate the products in a separate variable and the total in a separate variable. Then it will be easy to process them. So to do that, we are going to use object destructuring. Since we are destructuring an object, so we have to use curly brackets. And right now I'm just extracting the cart, the whole cart, along with the total from the data object that we have been received. Now from this cart, actually we can do something. So let's use data.cart, and over here, so now this represents the cart object. So from cart object, what we are going to do is that we are going to extract total, and the rest of the contents are going to be in the another variable which we are going to name as cart. Now let's console log total and cart to verify if we have done this restructuring properly. So console log total, then cart. Okay, so you can see this total and then this cart, and this cart doesn't have any total anymore because we have destructured this cart, data.cart, into two variables. So basically we are saying extract the property named total from this cart and store it into this variable. And over here we are saying after extracting total, extract the remaining properties of this variable or this object into this new object or this new variable. So now cart contains just the products and total contains just the total. Okay, so now we have the current status of the cart in these two variables. So let's update our local cart. So we have a property named cart in our local cart, length and total. Let's remove these. So local cart.cart, we are going to assign this cart to our local cart.cart property. Then local cart.total is going to get the total that we have just destructured from our object data.cart. Now for the local cart.length, what we are going to do is that we are going to, so basically what we want to know is that how many products are currently in our cart. Had this been an array, then we would have used cart.length. But since this is not an object, so object doesn't have any property through which we can count its all the properties in that object. So what we are going to do is we are going to use object.keys, and we are going to pass the object whose number of keys we are interested in, whose all the keys we are interested in. So we are passing it. We can pass the cart or local cart.cart, both currently represents the same thing. So I am putting in the cart. Now this will return us all the keys, and by keys we mean the properties, all the properties in our cart object. So product IDs are going to be returned as keys as a result of executing this method. Now on that we can use the length, because we have been returned an array. So this is object with capital O, not small o. So now we have cart in local cart.cart property, total in local cart.total property, and the number of items in the cart in local cart.length property. Now until we make another request to the fetch which makes changes in our cart, we are going to use this local object, the local cart one, if in the meantime we need to access the cart at the front end. Now after updating this local cart, we are ready to work on bringing the cursor over the cart icon. So to make this cursor appear and disappear over the cart icon, first of all we have to go to our CSS and create a CSS class there. In fact, let's go to index.html. Let's look for cart. And over here, let's add one more class to this, cart not empty. Now let's go to CSS file, search for the cart class. So there it is. So what we are going to do is that we are going to define certain style for cart not empty class, but we are going to define this style for its after C2 class. Its after C2 element. And what properties are going to set for this? So let's go back up to our root and define one more variable, cart, and let's temporarily put 6 in it. Let's make this cart size. Okay, now let's go back down. Over here, content is set to var cart size. So whatever is the value of this variable, those are going to be the contents of this after C2 class, C2 element. Let's give it width. Let's make it 28 pixels. Height is also 28 pixels. Background color is going to be primary color. Now let's convert this to circle by setting its border radius to 50%. Okay, so this is how it currently looks. Remember, now if you notice, the width and height property hasn't taken effect. So to make width and height take effect, we have to set its display property either to block or inline block. But if we do that, even though the width and height will take effect, but 6 won't be properly aligned within the center of that circle. If we not only want to make width and height take effect, but we also want the number to be exactly in the center of the circle, we have to set its display property to flex and then set the contents to be centrally aligned as well as centrally justified. So that's what we are going to do. Display is flex, justify content center, align item center, and let's increase the width and height a little bit more to 25 pixels. Now you can see it's centrally aligned, but since now it's occupying a lot of space and it doesn't have any more space on the at the end, so it has moved to the kind of next line, and because of that the cart icon has moved a bit further up. As a result, it's not aligned with these two icons anymore. So now we have to bring this cart icon back to its original position, and we have to move this circle to the top left corner of this cart icon. So to do that, what we have to do is that we have to take this circle out of the normal flow of these items in the browser, and to take element out of the normal flow, we have to set its display property either to fixed, not the display property, the position property either to be fixed or to be absolute, and then we can set the top left, bottom right corners to place the element anywhere in the browser. So if we set the position to be fixed, then we are basically positioning the element with respect to the starting position of the browser. and if we set the position to be absolute, then the element is going to be positioned with respect to the first parent whose display property has been set to something other than static. So we want this circle to be positioned with respect to icon, this cart icon. Therefore, we have to set its display property, the circle's display property, to absolute, and we have to make this icon its parent, so that this circle takes this cart's position as a parent property. That means we have to set first display property of this, the position property of this cart icon to be relative, and then we can set the position property for this circle to absolute, and then we can, using top left bottom right properties, we can move the circle around with respect to the cart icon. So let's first give position relative, setting the relative property, and then not defining any top left bottom right properties has practically no effect to the original position of this element. So this statement is not making any changes to the cart icon. However, now because the position property is set for the cart, now this cart will act as a parent for our after pseudo element if we set the position to be absolute. Now when you set the, let's comment this out for the time being, and let's go and have a look on the browser. So currently it has no effect. The only thing that has changed is that the cart has moved to its original position, and with respect to the cart, the circle has moved down. Previously it was trying to fit into the same place, so therefore the cursor got moved up and the circle moved down. Now we have to move this up and slightly towards the left. So currently where the circle is, that's the top, which is 0. So we have to move it beyond that initial position. So we are going to say minus 20 pixels, and left, let's make it 10 pixels and see where it places our circle. Okay, we have to move it a bit further towards the left and slightly down. So let's make this 15. Sorry, did I make 16? 15, and let's make this 15 as well. Okay, that's better. Now let's remove this cart.empty class from the index.html, and we will add and remove this class to this div dynamically through JavaScript, and the contents of that circle are going to be changed dynamically as well by accessing this variable from our JavaScript. So let's do that. So let's go back to cart.js, and now over here we have to say if local cart.length is greater than 0, so that means there are content in our cart. In that case, we want that circle to appear, and we already have access to this cart, don't we? Okay, so let's get a reference to our cart icon. Cart icon dot class list dot add cart.empty, and now we have to change the contents of that after pseudo element to reflect the length of this cart. So therefore we have to get access to the root pseudo element that we have defined in our CSS. So const root CSS document.query selector root, and what's the variable that we created? Cart size. So root CSS dot style dot set property, root CSS dot style dot set property, and the property that we are interested in is cart size, and the value that we want to give it is going to come from this cart length. So backticks. Now the value that we have to set for this cart size from our JavaScript, we must append the quotations. So the first two backticks represents the quotation marks for any text in our JavaScript, and the second one are part of the contents. So the actual contents must have this quotation. Without this quotation, the value will not be set. Now the value is going to come from local card.length. However, if a length is not greater than 0, in that case, card icon dot class list dot remove card not empty class. Now since we have, I think, 2 elements in our cart, okay, so it has already worked. Since we have 2 elements in our cart, so we can see 2 over here. Let's add one more item. It's out of stock. It's 3. Now you can see the value in the circle has changed as well to reflect the number of items in the cart. So this is working as well. Now we can move on to defining the detailed cart page, such that when you click on the cart, we should see the cart page over here. So let's work on that. For that, we have to attach an event listener with this cart, such that when we click on it, the cart contents should appear over here and these contents should disappear. So let's go and do that. We have this cart icon. Now attach an event listener with this cart icon. The event is click and the function is going to be show cart. Now let's go and define this function. Let's go and test it out if this works. Okay, so this is working. Okay, now the first thing that we want to happen when this function is called is that if any of the category is highlighted, we want all the categories to be unhighlighted, because let's suppose if main category is selected and in the window we are seeing the cart items, so it doesn't make sense. So first of all, we have to make sure if any category is selected, it has to be deselected. So to select all of the categories, we are going to call the same function that we created in one of our earlier videos, which was set active category and pass it null. So what usually happens is that we pass the category name over here. So the category which matches the category provided through this parameter over here, that category gets highlighted when this function finishes its execution. But now when we are selecting null, so no category is going to match the null. As a result, all the categories will be unselected. Let's go and see if it works. So let's select boy and now click on the cards and you can see the boy is unselected, baby, and it's unselected. So that means it's working. Now the next thing that we have to do is that we have to remove everything which is inside this main. So let's get reference to the main over here. Main is HTML element and sets its inner HTML to an empty string. So everything is erased from the main. Now create a div. Let's give it name container. Let's give this class name container div. Card container. Now let's create some divs which are going to represent the headings on our detailed card page. So const image heading document.create element div image heading dot text contents equals item. This is image heading. Now append this div as a child to container div. So container dot append child image heading. Okay, now we need to repeat this process for other headings, paste. Now let's change this. Okay, paste again. Now this time availability div. Change the text contains the availability as well. Paste. Now order value div. Okay, so we are done with the headings. Now we have to iterate through the cart and one by one keep adding those elements to this container. So to iterate through the cart, which is available through local cart.cart variable or property, so for const product, let's make it ID and product of object.entries local cart.cart. So this object.entries is going to return us one key value property of this local cart.cart, not cart icon. So this object.entries is going to return us each property in this cart into this ID and that property's value into this product variable at a time. And then within this curly brackets for this for block, we can define the rest of the logic. So the first thing that we should do is that we structure this product. So const, and now we know this product contains properties. One of them is image. There is another one price, quantity. And I think there is one more called stock, which is going to represent the availability. Okay, so now instead of writing product.image, image is full name. So now instead of writing product.image, we can straight away write image. Instead of saying product.price, we can straight away say price. Product.quantity, instead we'll say just quantity, and likewise just stock. Now let's create a div where we will insert this image. So const image div is document create element div. Now let's create another HTML element, image element, document create element image element source equals backticks http localhost 8081, and then we are going to append this image. This is because this image variable contains the rest of the path. Now attach this image element to this image div. Image div append child image element. Now this is image div. Now let's create quantity div. And within this div, we have to insert select statement. Since we have already defined the logic for select statement, so instead of writing the logic for the select, let's go and get that code. We have defined that code in the global.js file. Search for select. There is copy and paste it over here. Now let's go and check if we need to do any modifications. So we are creating a select statement over here. Then we are checking if stock equals 0. So in global.js, we did have a variable named stock. Let's go and check if we have a variable named stock over here as well. Yes, we have. So if its stock is equal to 0, select.disables equals true. Else, counter is equal to either the value select or the stock value. For I is equal to 1, 2 less than or equal to counter I plus plus. Then we are creating options. Then option.value equals I, option.text equals I as well. Then we are appending this option to select. Now, when we are creating these options, over here we need to add one more statement which is going to by default select the option which matches the quantity selected by the user. So, if I equals, we have a variable named quantity. But there is a possibility it's in textual form, so append plus sign. This will convert the string into numeric value, which will then match the I. If it matches the quantity, in that case, option dot set attribute selected, and we have to put an empty string. So this is going to select that element. So if the quantity is 3, we will be able to by default see number 3 there as the displayed value in the options drop down list. And we know this stock cannot be 0, so we need to remove this part, because if the stock is 0, obviously that cannot be in the cart. Now we need to append this select element to quantity div, and then append the quantity div to the container. We haven't attached this image div to the container either. Sorry. Container.append child image div, and let's do the same for the select. Quantity div.append child select, and then container.append child quantity div. Now let's remove this. Now let's create a div for the availability. So over here we have to use the switch statement because we have to display 3 different messages. If the stock is 0, then we will display the message out of stock. If the stock is less than 10, we will display only 7 left or only 3 left. And if the stock is greater than 10, we will display the message in stock. So again, we have defined this switch statement in our global.js file over here. So let's copy this. Okay, since we have stock div name over here, so let's change the name to stock div over here. Otherwise, we will have to make changes at many places. This way, we only have to make change over here. So now, if the stock is greater than 10, the text contents are going to be in stock. Color is green. Otherwise, so okay. So everything is working fine. Now, we have to append this stock div to the container. Okay, so we are done with the stock as well. Now let's work on the price per product div. Price div dot text contents equals, we have a variable named price that we have destructured from the object. Now within this div, we also have to create delete button. delete product button. This is delete button as well. Price div dot append child delete button. Now append this price div to the container. So container dot append child price div. Okay, let's go and test it out. The logic that we have defined so far, is it working or not? Refresh, close this, click. So something wrong. There doesn't seem to be an error, so it should work. I think I haven't appended the container to the main div, to the main HTML element. So it's outside the for loop, main dot append child container. Okay. So these are the headings: item, quantity, availability, order value. Then this is first image, and it's selected stock, it's selected quantity, and it's showing it's in stock, and this is the price. Then the delete button. Then second image, selected quantity, in stock, price, and delete button. Third image, selected quantity, in stock, price, and delete button. So everything seems to be working. We need to put a $sign with the price. So this is price. Put it within backticks. Now we can put the $sign. Okay, good. So we also need to attach at the bottom a div for the total, and then two buttons, one for continue shopping and other for checkout. But let's style these elements first, and then we will append those elements. Or shall we finish it before applying styling? Let's do that. Okay, so we have to attach those elements outside this for each loop, because we don't want repetition of those divs. We want the total to appear once, and those buttons, navigation buttons, to appear as one as well. So therefore we have to put them outside this for each loop as well. So let's create a div that represents total. Let's give it class name, because we need to target it through our CSS styling. Total div dot text contents equals backtick total, and then the total is going to come from the total variable that again we have destructured from our local card. Sorry, this is separate, it's not destructured, so we have to use local card dot total. Now let's append this to container. Container dot append child total div. Now let's create a div in which we will put those navigation buttons. So navigation div. Document.create element div. Let's give this one class name as well, because we need to define separate CSS styling for this as well. So nav div dot class name equals nav div. Now inside this div we need two buttons, one for continue shopping and one for checkout. So const continue shopping button, document create element button. Let's give this class name as well. Let's give it text. Nav div dot append child continue shopping button. Let's create same one for the checkout. Copy. Paste. Copy and paste. We have some spelling mistake over here. Okay. Let's give this button different class name. Checkout. Now we are ready to append this nav div to the container. So container.append child nav div. Okay, now let's go and have a look in the browser. Again, there is something wrong. Append child card 119 and parameter 1 is not of type node. Okay, we are not supposed to put it within the quotations. Okay, so let's go at the bottom. We have already checked it's working. Now this is total, and can you see these tiny buttons? Probably, I think we did give it text content, so okay, it's text content, not just text. Okay, so now we can see the total, continue shopping button as well as checkout. Now the only thing left is give it proper styling. So let's go to our CSS file. Okay, now let's go to the very end and the card container styling begins. Card container styling ends. Let's target card container. Set its display to grid template columns. Repeat 4 1FR. So equal size 4 columns on each row. The total width of this container is 80% of viewing window or viewport window. Margin 8 frame. Auto. Now let's target each of the divs in the container. So the divs which are direct children of this container, not the divs which are children of these divs. So that means each cell of this grid. So width 100%, display flex, justify content center, align item center, heading 2 rem top bottom, 2 rem left and right, border bottom, solid 1 pixel, gray. Now let's target the image which is inside this div. Let's give it width 35%. That's better. Okay. Now let's target select. Width 100%. Height 30%. Margin is up. Now let's work on this delete button. So we have given this button the class name delete product button, I think. Heading 0.5 frame and 1 frame. background color red, margin left, because we need space between text and the button. 2 rem, border radius 5 pixels for smooth edges, border color is red so that we don't see the border color, letter spacing 0.1 rem, font size is large. Okay, that's better. Now we have to work on total and these 2 buttons. So we have to make sure this total is occupying space equivalent to this whole row, because only then these 2 buttons will be on the next line. So we have given the last div, the class name total div, grid column, we want it to occupy space equivalent to 4 columns, so span to 4, and we want the text to be present at the very right side. So for that we have to set its display to flex and then justify content to right. This is not working, the contents are still in the center. However, if we put this class name and target the direct child with the class name total div, this time hopefully it will work. Yeah, we need to put $sign over here as well. Okay, now let's work on continue shopping and checkout buttons. So let's target nav div, margin top 3 rem, grid column again span to 4 columns, display grid, grid template columns 1fr, 1fr, column gap 40 rem. That's better. Now we have to target these buttons. Background color, primary color, heading 0.5 frame and 0, border radius 5 pixels for smooth edges, border color should also be primary color, letter spacing 0.1 rem, font size is large. Okay, so we are done with the styling. Now the only thing left is that when we change the value in this drop down list, we want the price to be updated as well for the product as well as the total price. And the second thing that we need to do is that when we click on this delete button, the item should be deleted from the cart. So let's get to it. So let's first work on updating the quantity, and for that we have to attach an event listener with this options element, and the event that we are interested in is change. So whenever this quantity is changed, we want that event to get triggered. So let's go back to where we just defined the select element and attach an event listener with that. This is quantity div, and within this div we define the select statement. So let's attach an event listener with this. Select dot add event listener, and the event that we are interested in is change, and let's name our callback function update quantity. Now let's define this function. Copy, we need to pass the event which got triggered as a result, because through which we are going to access the changed value. So console log e.target.value is going to return as the updated value. Okay, let's change this from 7 to 2. Nothing happened. Refresh. Okay, it did change. Let's change one more time. Let's select 9 and it's working. Let's do the same for this element. Okay, so it's working. Now what we are going to do is that first of all we are going to create a query string. payload, new URL search params, and this is payload. Let's append one key value pair to it. So the key is going to be quantity, and for the value, let's write copy paste. Now let's make a fetch call. Now since this time we are updating certain value, so we can use either HTTP fetch request or put request. So I prefer the fetch request because it makes more sense. We are fetching something. So car.php. The callback function is we are going to again call the same function that we created, response update card. Paste. Now provide the method type. So we are this time using fetch, and the last one is the data that we want to send along, payload. Okay, so that's it. In fact, let's not use this one right away. Let's cut it and response update quantity. Now let's define this function. And within the body of this function, let's call this function response update card and pass along whatever data we received. And the reason I removed this response update card from here and instead define another callback function, and within that callback function, the first thing that I'm doing is again calling the same function. So you must be wondering, then what's the point? Why don't we use this straight away over here? Well, the reason for using a different callback function is that within this function, obviously the first thing that we are using is calling the response update card function. But once this function has done its job, then we want to call another function which is show card, because this is going to kind of reprint the new card with the updated quantity and associated price and the total price. So we would not have been able to do these two things if we directly pass this function over here. Okay, so this is all that we needed to do at the front end. Now let's go and define its counterpart at the back end. So car.php, and let's copy this and let's go down. Paste it. The first thing that we need to do is change the method type to page. Then let's comment these things out for the time being. We will uncomment them in a while, but now let's focus on how to extract data from the request. You see, the PHP by default provides us two super global variables, get and post. So if the HTTP request is get, we can use super global variable $_get to extract the data from the request. If the HTTP request is post, we can use super global variable $_post to extract the data. But with fetch, put and delete, there are no super global variables associated with them. So that means we have to find other ways to extract the data. So what we are going to do is that we are first of all going to get data by using a function called file get contents, and to this parameter we can pass a file name or we can pass an input stream. PHP is input stream, so we are passing in that input stream PHP : 2/ and then the word input. So this is going to get the data from the input stream, which in our case is going to be the HTTP request. Now this is data in the raw form. We want to convert it into associative array like we have with super global variables get and post. So to convert this data into associative array, we are going to pass this whole thing as a first parameter to another string called parse string, because this first parameter represents the string and the second parameter is going to be the array name to which we want to store this string as an associative array. So let's follow super global variable conventions and let's create an array named fetch. So now this thing extracts the data from the HTTP request, converts it into a string, and then parse string, take that string as an input, converts it into associative array and stores in this array $_page. You can pass any name, but I have matched it with the other super global variables get and post. Now uncomment these things. So now again, if it's a logged user, then let's call another function. Let's make it update logged user card, and we are passing along this fetch array. Else update guest user card and pass along the fetch array. Now we have to define both of these functions in the relevant file. So copy where is logged user and paste it over here and put empty body function. Okay, close it. Now copy this guest user card, and at the bottom function update guest user card, and this is the body. And in the body, let's extract the data. That reminds me, over here we have only attached one query string key value pair which represents the quantity. We need to pass along the ID as well. So how can we get the ID? This function doesn't have access to ID, so that means where we were attaching this function as an event listener, we have to go back there and bind ID with it. Okay, bind, and since the ID in this function is represented through, where is the for loop, this variable ID, sorry, let's pass ID. Okay, okay, now let's attach one more key value pair with the payload ID, and the value is going to come from this keyword. Okay, now let's go back to card.php, guest user card. Okay, now over here extract both of those values in local variables. $_ fetch ID, $_ quantity equals quantity. Now if we are updating the quantity, that means the product already exists in the cart, so we don't need to check if this product exists or not. So $_ session cart, the second parameter is going to be ID, and the third parameter is going to be quantity. And let's assign it new value, this one. And if the quantity is changed, obviously we have to update the price as well. So let's create a variable price. So the price is going to be quantity times the price of 1 unit of this product, which we are going to get from this get product price function. So we have to call this function get prod price and pass along the ID. So this will return us the ID of 1 unit of this particular product, then times quantity, it gives us the total quantity. This function returns us the price of 1 unit of this particular product, and then times quantity gives us the total price for the number of units user has in the cart. But now since this value could have a very long fractional value, so we have to reduce it to 2 decimal points. So we have used round so far to kind of rounding it off to 2 decimal points, but now I'm going to use a different function which is again going to do the same job. So let's learn this both ways. So the function is vc_div, and this takes 3 parameters as a string. Price, then we have second parameter is going to be the number with which we are going to divide this number with. So we actually are not interested in dividing the price, so we place 1. So if you divide whatever value with 1, the value is going to remain the same. Now the third parameter is how many fractional places do you want after the decimal point. So we are interested in 2. Now we have this price. So now all we need to do is update the price. And since the price for single product has changed, that means the total will also be affected because the quantity is changed, hence price is changed, therefore total price is also going to change. So we are going to call update total. What was the function name? Update total card. Now let's send the updated card back to the client. Okay. So let's move this function above the helper functions. These two are helper functions. Let's place it before these helper functions. Okay. So hopefully we have done everything right and we should be able to see updated values. So now let's change it. The price unit is 156.89 and let's look at the price as well. 2,285 plus something. Patch is not allowed. Okay, we have received a course issue. It says the method patch is not allowed by access control allow methods in pre-flight responses. Okay, so that means we have to add one more header in our PHP. So all the headers are defined in this db.php file, and by default PHP only allows HTTP request of type get and post. So we have to add another header. Access control allow headers get post fetch delete. Now our server will accept these four types of HTTP requests. I haven't included put over here. That means if any request comes with the HTTP put verb, then it won't be accepted. So hopefully now it will work. Okay. Let's change it to 3 again. Okay, I figured out the problem. The problem is that it's not actually access control allow headers, it's access control allow methods, because these are HTTP methods. Okay, now let's change the property to 3, and you can see the property is 3 and the value has been updated, the price, and so is the total. Let's change it back to 156 and 22,000. Let's change this to 1. The price has decreased as well. So our quantity change is working as well. Now the only thing left is we have to attach an event listener with this delete button, and then we have to send a request to the backend to delete this particular product from the cart. So let's go and attach an event listener with this button. So cart.js. So I think we gave this button the class name delete product button. Okay, so this is where we were defining this button. Now attach an event listener with this. Delete button dot add event listener. The event that we are interested in is click. Okay, and the method is delete product. And again, this will need the ID of the product. So let's bind the ID with it already. Let's pass the ID. Now let's go and define this function. Copy. So this does get ID as it's this keyword. Now we have to make a fetch request to the backend. That means we have to create query string const payload new URL search params payload dot append. The key is ID and the value is this. Let's make a fetch call to car.php. and the callback function is going to be response. It's going to be the same as this one. So what we are going to do is that let's generalize this function, response update cart, and let's bring this function response update cart. Let's bring it outside. Cut. Let's make it paste over here. So now this is a global function, response update cart. So now over here we will again use the same function, response update cart. Method is delete and the data is payload. That's it. Now we don't need to do anything. So both of these fetch and delete requests are calling this function response update cart and passing it the data which it receives from the backend. Then the first thing that they are doing is that they are updating the cart and then showing the updated cart. Okay, now let's go to the backend and work on the counterpart at the backend. So cart.php, again let's copy this, copy, delete specific product from cart, paste. Let's change the request to delete and change the array name to delete as well. If we set logged user, then let's make it delete logged user cart product. Let's make it product and let's pass the delete. Now let's define this function in the logged user file. So this is logged user. Function and put empty curly brackets for the body. Copy, go to guest user cart, okay. Now let's extract the ID from this delete array. Now again, this product with this ID does exist. That's why we have this ID in the first place. So we don't need to check if this product exists. We simply have to call unset function and pass session cart, and the second index is going to be ID. So this is going to unset the product associated with this ID. Basically it removes this particular element from this cart array. Now since a product has been removed, so that means the total need to be recalculated because it's definitely going to change. So update cart, total cart. Now our total has been updated. Now we are ready to send the response back, that is the updated cart, back to our customer, to our front end. Okay, that's it. Now we have done something wrong over here. Let's go to the cart.js. Okay, so the thing is this: when I change the name from response update quantity, I gave it name response updated cart. I failed to realize that this function also has the name response update cart. So let's change this name to something else. Modify. Copy. Paste it over here. And paste it over here as well. Okay, one more time, let's update. The price has changed and I'm sure the total is also changed. Let's modify. Oh, this is already. Let's make it 5. The price has changed. Oh, sorry, the total is also changed. Okay, now let's delete this one. It's not working. Failed to execute fetch on window. Delete payload is not a valid HTTP method. Okay, that's because this quotation is supposed to come over here. Okay, let's delete this. Okay, we got one item deleted and our cart is updated as well. Delete this one. Now the thing is this, when our cart gets deleted, then we should be redirected back to our dashboard. And by redirected, I don't mean the change in the URL, but rather the different contents, the dashboard contents. So now we have to work on that part. So let's go to our show cart function, because this is the one that is showing. Okay. So over here, the first thing that this show cart function should do is that it basically checks the length of the local cart.length. If the value is greater than 0, then we should be able to see the cart. Otherwise, we should see the dashboard contents. Now over here, we have to check if we are already on the cart details page. So if we are on the cart details page, which I remind you is not the page, just that the contents of the main contains the cart details. If our main basically contains the cart details and there is nothing in the cart, we have deleted all the items from the cart. Now our cart is empty. In that case, we want to change the contents of main from the cart pages to our dashboard contents. So that means we have to move this statement at the top so that now we can use this main reference. So if main.children, if currently our main is showing cart details, so that means the main will currently have one child. So at index 0, we will have a child whose class list will contain a class named cart container. So if that is the case, so cart is empty and we are seeing the cart details page. So if that is the case, we are kind of redirecting location.replace. And since this is a single page application, that means we don't have actually different pages to move to. So what we are going to do over here is that we are going to access the URL which is currently being shown in the browser address bar. So location.pathname is going to give us the address in the address bar, and we are replacing whatever is currently on the page with that page. This in turn is going to reload the page. So this is the only time when our whole page is going to be reloaded. So basically, in a sense, it will give the illusion of we being redirected to the main page or dashboard. However, if that is not the case, it means we are already on the dashboard. So in that case, if the cart is empty, then we should just see an alert which says the cart is empty. So alert, cart is empty. And then now we simply return from this show cart function. That means the rest of the logic doesn't execute. Okay, so now let's go and test it out if this logic is working. So currently our cart is empty. So we should see just a pop-up when we click on this cart icon. The cart is empty. Okay, and we are still on the same page. Now let's add something to the cart. Let's add this item. Add this one as well. Now we should be able to actually see the cart details page because now our cart is not empty. Okay, so we have these items. Now let's delete one by one. Now delete. Now since our cart is empty, so we got redirected to our dashboard. So with this, we have finished all the logic related to our cart, which is associated with our guest users, and at the back end, we have implemented this cart through the PHP session variables. I hope you liked it. If you did, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much.